welcome. This is the, how many is this? This is the 5th of our new series of monthly workshops under the banner of the Sync Up Conference. The Sync Up Conference, of course, is the music business and film industry conference put on by the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, the Jazz and Heritage Foundation being the nonprofit organization that owns the Jazz Fest. And the role of the Jazz and Heritage Foundation is to use the money from Jazz Fest for all of the free programs that we put on throughout the year. And we are active in education, economic development, and cultural enrichment. And we are thrilled to have our radio station and broadcast partner, WWOZ, here in the house, webcasting today's session. And I'm excited about this one. This is one that I wanted to do because we all spend so much time on social media, and some of us actually think we know what we're doing with social media, and I just got ticked off by all of the annoying things that I see on social media. And I thought, why not have a discussion about the right way to approach it, especially if you're a performing artist and you're looking to grow your fan base and possibly even make some money. Not sure how anybody is actually doing that on social media, but maybe we'll find out today. So anyway, we've got a very large and very distinguished panel, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, starting with to my immediate left, Tonya Dawn.
Hi, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here to talk social media. My name is Tonya Dawn. I'm the Director of Communications at the Youth Empowerment Project, a nonprofit here in town working with underserved youth. Our target group is 16 to 24 out of school and unemployed young people in New Orleans. I have a background in broadcast news as well. I came from the sort of journalism on-air side to now the behind-the-scenes communication side. So I think the knowledge that I bring to the table today is twofold.
Great.
And this is Cleveland.
Next up is Cleveland Spears.
Good afternoon, Cleveland Spears. I'm the president and CEO of the Spears Group. We're a marketing and strategic communications firm. We also own and produce a number of our own events, most notably the largest of which is the National Fried Chicken Festival. We produce an event called Dîner en Blanc. It's French for dinner in white. It's a very cool kind of pop-up dinner party. We do that event, market that event almost exclusively on social media. We also have recently created another event called La Fête des Rosés, French for Rosé Celebration, and the Millennial Awards, and a couple of other event-based projects that we have.
And next is Plus Aziz.
So my background is in brand strategy. Right now I'm a freelance contractor with Propeller, which is an incubator space and very, very powerful force in the city here, working with a lot of small businesses and startups that are driven by a social mission of some kind, environmental or social mission. I've also been on Tchoup Industries for a while, so that's a retailer, and it's led by Patty Dunn, which is she's a designer here in the city for quite some time now. So I run her social and digital channels, which means email, anything to do with Pinterest or search or reaching out to influencers, all that good stuff. It's a pretty robust brand, so there's a lot of things that can be done, but only so many hours in the day. And then I'm also a band leader. I started my band about 2 years ago here called Kuwaziana, and we're going to be releasing our album in a couple of days, actually. So I'm very excited to be speaking with you about social media today. It's definitely one of my passion points, and also similar to what you're saying, Scott, like one of those kind of channels or mediums that I really interrogate and wonder how productive is it to kind of like put it to work, and how much of it is just kind of like, you know, wasted energy. So there's a lot of kind of questions around social media. I by no means am an expert, but you know, I have some knowledge, a lot of practical knowledge, and it's also something that I grew up with, so I kind of have a natural kind of like way of using it, if you will.
Don't be modest. Tell them how you're releasing your record.
So the record is going to be released on Universal Music.
Yay!
In the Middle East. Social media is partially, I guess, credited for enabling me to do that. but there's really a lot of nuts and bolts that a band has to have in place before the social media like really starts to begin working with you. So, you know, I have a perspective on it. I'm sure a lot of us have different ideas and perspectives on how to make social media work for you. So yeah, I look forward to everyone's thoughts today.
Next is Whitney Mitchell.
Hey y'all, this space is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And we should probably know each other. Maybe.
Probably, maybe.
We should know each other.
I know of you.
You know me?
I do know of you, yes, and your
She's-
work with
she's
Yep, and we
always
appreciate you, and you've been hiring some of our young people, which is pretty phenomenal,
have.
through Design Works, yes.
Yes.
Another plug to the Youth Empowerment Project, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She's definitely the expert up here.
Hi y'all. I'm Whitney Mitchell, and I am the social media director at FSC Interactive. We are a digital marketing agency that's in the Lower Garden District. We work with Cleveland. We work with Yep as well. And so we do things so that your website can be optimized. We do social media marketing, paid social media ads, so that those ads that follow you around the internet, it's us. And some of our clients are Visit New Orleans or the New Orleans and Tourism Marketing Corporation. We have a couple of alcohol brands, and we don't have any musicians yet, so come on.
All right.
I also do some freelance work outside of FSC Interactive, so I've worked with some pretty large brands like Fila, Veuve Clicquot, the champagne, Shea Moisture, just a few, and I've done some content creation for them and some strategies for them as well, so I can get you hip on what content resonates with people, hopefully. That's it.
For now.
For now.
And Mallory.
Hi, my name is Mallory Whitfield. By day, I am the Director of Marketing at Lookfar, which is a software development studio that works with tech startups from across the Southeast and beyond. And then outside of that, I teach people how to creatively market themselves online and how to tap into the creative potential. And what that means is I've come from a place of running my own creative businesses since 2004. I started out selling one-of-a-kind upcycled clothing at art markets and craft shows, and built different variations of what that business was over the years. I had an e-commerce site for a while, and I was a blogger for a really long time, and still technically am. And then I got really into teaching business owners how to market themselves, actually when I started working at FSC Interactive in 2014. I was there until August of last year when I went over to Lookfar. But so now I teach a lot of workshops and do a lot of speaking outside of my day job, and I also have a podcast called Badass Creatives, where I interview artists and creatives of all different stripes. So one local musician that I've had on recently was Robin Barnes. So if you're interested in that, there's a lot of juicy stuff that she shares in that episode about how she's made a career as an artist and musician.
She started as an intern with us about 9 years ago.
Wow.
So, and now look at her.
Look at her now.
I know. It's awesome. It's great to see. Anyway, so thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it, and we're really happy to have you. So I'm going to ask a few questions, leave plenty of time for audience questions. I assume you all are here because you have social media questions, needs, concerns, and we want to make sure that we cover all of those. But for my purposes, I'm going to ask questions essentially from the perspective of an independent musician, because that's really what our focus for this part of the conference is. So the first thing that comes to mind is for a performing artist, or let's say an independent musician that doesn't have the benefit of an advertising agency or, you have a major label, but you also do a lot of your own social media marketing very aggressively, and I mean that in a good way. Should people think about the different platforms that are out there? We all use this term social media as if it is one size fits all, when we all also know that there are all these different platforms out there. There's, Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Instagram. All of them have their own kind of ecology and their own metrics and tools of the trade. So how do you distinguish between them? Just jump in, whoever wants to go first.
Hi. I think it's important to understand that each platform is very different. So you're going on Twitter to share information, but to talk with people. You go on Facebook to share it with your family and friends. You go on Instagram to get discovered by networks of people that don't necessarily know that you exist, or even your family and friends. But all of the social media platforms are very different in how content can be digested. So on Facebook, video is great. Instagram, static photos, like independent photos are great. Video also does well on Instagram as well. Twitter, people want to read things. People go on Twitter to bookmark and read it, save it for later. They also digest video on there as well. I think it's important to understand who your audience is and who you're trying to communicate with before you even decide, I want to put myself on social media and I want to connect with new people and grow my following. You have to understand who your audience is on each of those platforms. And so Instagram tends to skew younger, Facebook tends to skew older, Twitter is kind of a mosh-mash of everybody right now.
That tends to skew Trump.
Yeah, yeah, it tends to skew Trump. I don't think I've said his name in a very long time.
You don't have to, it's okay.
I take it back. But it's really important for you to understand who your audience is and meeting them where they're at. One of the things that is special to you guys is you communicate through music, and it's not intended for a specific audience, it's you expressing yourself, right? And so with that, you have to be careful not to compromise your art and sell it in a different way, and so that you're creating a different experience that other than what people want to interpret from your music. So I think it's just really important to understand how people digest information from each platform and deciding on what platform is right for you and who you're trying to connect with.
And I think just to piggyback off of what Aziz had said when his introduction started, I think that there's so many platforms and they're always evolving and there's always a new platform tomorrow, and determining, you have to be honest with yourself about, are you going to really update this platform? Just to sign up on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or Google Plus or whatever you decide to do, if you're not updating on a regular basis, you're actually doing yourself a disservice and your followers are a disservice, and potential fans. So I think you have to be very honest. Am I going to update this? Am I going to create content for this? Am I going to respond to followers' comments and likes? People take time to like your music, like your pictures. And if you're not interacting with people want to feel important, right? So if you're not interacting with them, it's kind of a waste of time. Yep. And Aziz had said that at the beginning.
And one thing I'll add, and I certainly want to agree that it's really about understanding the audience, and the audiences on each platform are very different. You know, one thing we believe Twitter, for example, is about peer-to-peer networking and thought leadership. Twitter can be a great platform to interact with other musicians, other people in the music and entertainment space, because you can you understand who your peers are. You can go follow them. You can go engage with them. So I see that as a very professional platform. Instagram is very photo-driven. It's a great way to spark curiosity. They always say a photo is worth 1,000 words. Using Instagram to really get someone curious about you, and then go to explore further. And then obviously Facebook, you can do so much on Facebook. You can write a long soliloquy, a paragraph in your post. You can post videos. You can post photos. So really, you can share the most of yourself on Facebook, and you can engage with a broad range of audiences. But really, those are some of the ways we use it, especially when we're talking with clients. That's kind of how we look at kind of stratifying those different platforms.
Something that I would like to also add on Instagram, if you're using it on a personal level, I don't think you have access to any analytics, so you don't actually know who your followers are, where they are, and this kind of thing. So if you're a band, or if you're kind of have a bigger vision of what you're doing, if you're like making music, but you're also interested in a clothing line or something that's kind of there, you probably want to get a business profile. It's very easy to do, but that will give you analytics. So there's kind of like this feedback loop that can start. I'm also a big fan of scheduling things, because as a musician, you probably don't really want to spend a lot of time on social media. And a lot of the musicians that I know are actually like afraid of technology. They're not very comfortable with social media, and it's a real hassle for them to get online. So if you're using something like HootSuite or TweetDeck or whatever, that will enable you to schedule tweets. You can just have a power hour on your Sunday or whenever it is that you're available, put that content on there, and then you're not really thinking about it for the rest of the week. And yeah, I think it's very accurate what you were saying too about like Instagram having a defined kind of like very defined skews. Twitter is, I mean, that's part of what their problem is right now. They're having trouble monetizing because they have, you know, the kind of all these kind of fragments and subcultures within Twitter, and it's not like this cohesive skew that you would get on Instagram or Facebook. So it's kind of very hard to define that platform, and the pace of it is a lot faster as well, right? So I found that when it comes to scheduling too, it doesn't hurt to schedule the same update, let's say 2 or 3 times throughout a week. So if I'm saying, you know, if I'm like drumming up my album release or something, I'll schedule something on a Monday at like 9 a.m. when people are getting into work, on Wednesday, 2 p.m. when people are coming off of lunch, and then Friday before they're going off into the weekend. And you'll find that because the platform is so fast moving, the same audience will not see that same content. And then the opposite is true for other platforms that are slower moving, let's say. You probably can only use that piece of content once, and then you want to boost it or you want to kind of recontextualize it somehow, but you won't be able to kind of like stretch it out over a long period of time.
And Mallory, you came here to sing the praises of MySpace, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, MySpace is a really good point, is why it's important to build a brand outside of social media as well and make sure that you actually have the contact information for your fans and for your people via email newsletters or via text messages can be an option, or you're having your own website. But Whitney made a point about the fact that as a musician especially, you have this broad audience that might find you, but I think it's really, really important to have a clear picture of who your ideal fan or your ideal customer is. I go so far as to, when I do a brand workshop with somebody, I'll have like a whole worksheet and we'll work through like, have a name for that person, know exactly what they look like, what they're into, what drives them, what other types of music, what other types of TV shows, movies, books they read and ingest. That way you can clearly talk to them. Like, you're obviously not saying their imaginary name, right? Or maybe it's based on a real person that you know that's a fan of yours, that's like the super fan. But that makes it so that you can decide which of those platforms to spend more time on. Because if you are a solo artist, unless you've made it big and you can have agencies or somebody else helping you, you don't have time to be on all of the platforms all the time unless you somehow have more hours in the day than Beyonce. You have to pick and choose and really be strategic about your time. But also, having a clear idea of who that ideal customer is lets you communicate to them in a human, sort of vulnerable way. Actually, and as far as Instagram, and I feel like there's sort of it can be good in one way to upgrade to a brand page, but then if you're a solo musician, you might have an advantage from leaving it as a personal page. Like, I actually switched, my personal account, I had switched to a brand page for a while, and then I actually switched it back off, because as soon as Facebook, which owns Instagram, knows that you're a business or a brand, they want you to pay them money to advertise. So some people will see engagement go down if they switch it to a brand page. You do get the added bonus of analytics and insights, and you can advertise. So if advertising to boost your posts is something that's important to you, you have to switch it to a brand page. But it's important to like be intentional and know why you're doing that decision.
Is there a fee for that?
To switch it to the brand page? No.
Something that you mentioned too, when it comes to social media, doesn't really work very well if that's all you're doing, right? I think everyone probably knows that, especially when you're in music. You want to couple it with a calendar. That would be great. Knowing when your shows are, if you're going on tour, if you have any events or whatever, kind of clustering some of your updates around some of that stuff. So definitely have a calendar of some kind, and then email and text messaging definitely being like, you know, more old school, but definitely that's what I was referring to in the intro as like the nuts and bolts. Like, I feel that when you're performing for an audience, rather than, you know, being there in between songs asking them, hey, follow us on XYZ, have an email list that they can sign up to and just direct them to that. And, you know, one of the things that they're going to naturally do is they're going to try to find you on social media. So I don't think you need to like spend too much time hammering it too much unless there's a specific platform that you're trying to develop. But I'm definitely a firm believer in terms of kind of thinking about how can you work outside of social media to kind of grow your audience on social media.
Yeah, I think I want to add on to that, Aziz. Thanks. I think social media, I know social media, is like, let's think about it like a date, right? So your first date is you're on social, you're courting them, you're showing them all your good stuff.
Are you talking about Tinder?
I'm talking about Tinder. And you want them to swipe right. But you're on social, you're courting them, you're giving a brand awareness. You're creating brand awareness for your brand, right? So then what do you want to do? You want to go on another date, so you want to keep them. So you want to send them somewhere, whether it's your website, whether it's MySpace. MySpace is still a thing. People still use it. You can use Squarespace and create your own website, but you want to send them somewhere so they can have a second date. Then you want to keep them. And Mallory's going to love this. So you get them on an email list so you can email updates. And so there's a continuous cycle, and now you're in a full-blown relationship. If they sign up for your email list, they're committed to you. And so social media gets them through that cycle and creates a continuous cycle so that people can stay engaged with your brand.
Yeah. Well, and both of y'all talking about email actually reminded me of an awesome service that I just started using that would be ideal for musicians because you're on stage and telling people. So there's a lot of these services, but there's one called Join by Text that I started using recently. So if you want to sign up for my emails, you can text the word Badass Creatives, all one word, to the number 66866. So a lot of speakers do this, but it's brilliant for musicians because you're on stage, everybody has their phone, all you have to do is tell them to whip out their phone, put this number in, put the word in, and then it walks you through to basically like get their email, and then they're automatically added to MailChimp or whatever you use. So easy. It's like you already have their email. Instead of having them to like follow you on Instagram, make them get onto your email list first.
Yeah, you want to make it easy.
Can we ask questions or wait till the end?
If you want to ask a question, please use the microphone over there.
2 comments real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
So what Mallory was referring to earlier, that ideal customer, what you want to put into Google probably is like persona template or something like that. That's going to give you an idea of what are the fields that you want to fill out. And there's 1,000 different ways to develop your persona. And then a really good framework to work with as well, this is what you were pointing to, is the funnel, right? You'll hear this marketing funnel. HubSpot uses this kind of terminology where in the beginning you're on that first date, you're at the brand awareness stage where it's just like very casual and fleeting. And then as you move them, as you move them down the funnel, email is a much higher level conversion, right? So it takes a lot more interest from a person for them to give you their email. It's like an invitation to a very private space, right? Versus a Facebook like. Like we like stuff all the time on Facebook. It's a very low level conversion. So you're going to want to ease people into these kind of conversions. And if you're touring regionally, if this is the second time you're playing in a particular city or venue, maybe you can start to ask for a little bit more. But if it's just like if the first splash that you're making, the first impression that you're making, you want the content to kind of do some of that work for you and get them interested in you before you start asking them for stuff.
So it sounds like the first headline to come out of the discussion today is that you can't just use social media in a vacuum. It has to be in conjunction with other mechanisms for talking to people. And I think that is going to catch a lot of people by surprise, because I think that there are a lot of bands that I know of that they think that just updating their Facebook or posting something on Facebook is enough, that's all that they have to do, and that is how they're going to reach the audience that they're trying to reach. Well, I've got 500 people who like me. Those are the only people that I really need to reach. So that's one thing that I would like to come back to as well. But Whitney mentioned this a little bit, and I'd like to elaborate on it even more. The differences between the types of things that you would post on the different platforms, and also if you could talk a little bit more about the frequency with which you might post on one platform as opposed to another. And I also was curious about using a service like HootSuite, because if there are differences and different strategies for the different platforms, if somebody is using HootSuite and they will, with one push of a button, get a message on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, etc., they're basically treating them all as if they're the same. And I think that we need to recognize that there were big differences. So if you could, just elaborate a little bit more about different approaches to different platforms, like what's good on Instagram that isn't good on Facebook or that isn't good on Twitter, or how often you might post on one versus the other.
I think it goes back to what I was saying before. I think it's about time management, and as Mallory said, and Whitney, if you don't have an agency working on your behalf, what are you willing to do and not do? So Facebook has seen a huge increase. I was reading a stat, a 700% increase in video views because of Facebook Live. Mm-hmm. I see local musicians in town, I see musicians all over the country, all over the world, going live. Performing on their own, at Jazz Fest, at concerts. So video is key, and people are also lazy. So, if it's a little video clip on a cell phone, it doesn't have to be professional. You're not professional photographers or videographers, but I do think that videos go viral. You see lots of musicians also just practicing. I have friends in town, they set up a video, their cell phone cameras, and they're just practicing in their living rooms, and then they're posting it online, and it's so interesting to see because they might mess up, and these are really good musicians, and you see them.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to that.
At Jazz Fest, but it's just good to see, I think, that people are real, and we all, practice makes permanent or perfect, and especially for musicians, people don't become superstars overnight, and I think it's good to see that sort of real, homegrown, genuine content. And I think people can see between what's really fake and what's real. So you can make yourself and your brand look perfect, but everybody knows that no one's lives are perfect, no one's talent is perfect, and especially I think for musicians, I think that they can be role models even to little ones and big ones alike. So I think video is definitely key.
So Facebook video.
Yes,
Video
YouTube,
Facebook.
YouTube channel, again, that's a great place for you to put your music, your videos, YouTube. If you don't have a YouTube channel, you should, and Facebook Live is great too.
Okay, so distinctions between the platforms and what to post and when.
So does everybody in here have a YouTube? Yes.
Yeah.
Musicians in the room, do you have YouTubes? You should. Great. Video is key. But along with YouTube, are you tagging your videos and making sure that you have searched, I'm trying to say this.
Search engine friendly keywords.
Yeah, but how do we say that in not a jargony way?
Okay, so search engine optimization. Here's the way to make it simple. Just think about how somebody would search for what you do, like your type of music, and use those words in your descriptions, in your video title, in your website page titles, in your keyword tags that you put on YouTube. Just use the words that somebody would use to type into the search bar.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, treating each platform like an individual. While you're on YouTube, you can't just post your YouTube link on Facebook. You should upload the same video to Facebook so that it lives there and people will reblog it or share it more. I'm crossing jargon. If you have a video and you've uploaded it on YouTube, do not put your YouTube link on Facebook. Upload it on Facebook, let it live there. You're gonna wanna separate your channels. If you have an Instagram and you publish a photo, do not publish that photo and push it to Facebook. People tend to look at that as spam. Mm-hmm. You wanna take that same photo and put it on Facebook. Treat each one like they're different children. You do not have a favorite. They're all equally as important, and they have to be treated as such.
So that's very time consuming.
It is.
They're very time consuming. One great resource that I found is called Canva.com. So that's Canva.com. I've primarily been using it to resize images. So if I have a flyer, I want to resize it for a Facebook event cover. If I want to resize it for Instagram, for whatever, I go to this website and I'm resizing stuff so that I'm giving the end user an optimal experience. And you also have to think also about these tech giants and what they're trying to do, right? Like what's in it for them when you're uploading the content. So posting things native to the platform is in their best interest. Facebook is moving in that direction where you can tag, you can optimize, they're gonna be more likely to kind of push it through their ecosystem if they're like, yo, this video is native, it's not something from the Google universe trying to take up our space or whatever. So, you know, keep that mindset, and there's a lot of articles online that can help you to kind of sort through some of that stuff.
So I'll comment on your question about frequency of posts. And obviously you spoke about it earlier, talking about the speed of Twitter. So obviously you can really tweet all day because the users are used to of things coming in kind of at a pretty rapid pace. You know, I would say the frequency should be around the quality of the content. If you've posted a really good, rich piece of content on Facebook or on Instagram, you want to let that content have an opportunity to live and have its own kind of airtime before you are creating more content in addition to all of your other friends and followers who are creating their own content to push it further down. So if you are putting out a major announcement, great graphics, great creative, great testimonials from someone who's booked the band before, you may want to have a minimum of a day or so before you begin posting more content, because you want to have that content to have an opportunity to live, particularly on channels like Facebook and Instagram. And I certainly want to support what Whitney said about YouTube. We probably book about 50 or so bands and DJs a year between our various events. And you know, the way it works is my team will come in with a list of musicians to recommend to me, and the first thing, almost the only thing I do, is go search for them on YouTube, because musicians are entertainment, they're there to create an experience. So, you know, listening to someone's music on iCloud is great. But if I'm trying to find someone to come out and entertain a crowd and create an amazing experience, I almost exclusively search, and I should say video, because you can also find video on Facebook and things like that. But YouTube is extremely important
But when you're doing that, will you go specifically to YouTube and search there, or will you Google them and see what videos come up?
I go to YouTube first, and that's just my own personal nature. I think people understand that YouTube is about video. If I go to these other places, I might get articles about them, I might get photos of them, and it's a whole bunch of other stuff, but I really want to see them perform. So I am predisposed to go to YouTube first.
Because what I do, I'm sorry, excuse me one second, because I also book bands for festivals and concerts, and especially if it's an artist that I'm not familiar with, I will search their name to see what comes up first. And if it's a Facebook page, that's a signal to me that they don't have a website, which is like a red flag that they're not legit in my eyes. And so I will want to look for video and find video, but really I'm looking to see how serious are they by how much of an online presence do they have apart from social media.
I think on top of the frequency, it's really important just to be consistent. If you only have the time to post one time a week, Facebook will give you analytics and Instagram will give you analytics on when your following is actually most active. So maybe it's Monday and you do Music Monday and you can only post that one time. Every Music Monday, you should have a piece of content out so that people know, as you, the artist, that, oh, they're gonna put something out on Monday. I've been waiting for Monday, so I know it's coming. Participating in trends, maybe it's Music Monday or Tuesday Tunes. I don't know, nobody's ever used that one, I don't think. Don't use that one, just kidding. But I think it's really important to be consistent. So you have to really understand what your timeline is like, and if you cannot post consistently 2 to 3 times a week, choose one day. And make sure that you're consistently posting on that day so your audience knows that you are present and they know when to expect your content.
And we have brought up HootSuite. That's what we use at the Youth Empowerment Project. So I will spend a Monday afternoon creating content, and that Monday afternoon I will schedule something for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on multiple platforms. Again, each platform is different, as you all have said, so you have to cater that content to those platforms, but there are so many free tools out there, and you talk about a website and people are like, oh my God, I'm not a web designer, but there's so many different platforms like WordPress, they'll walk you through it. It's pretty easy in this day and age just to be able to put a basic website up with your contact information, and also, again, sharing that website on your social media platforms. So, you know, in your profile it says, look at the website, people can click on the website, on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on whatever. But I think it's good to have everything interrelated, like everyone has been saying.
Right.
Yeah, and so Aziz brought up Canva, which is an amazing tool, and it is free. They have a paid subscription, but you can use pretty much everything, the basic version of it, for free. And it has basically templates for all of the different social media platforms where you can just edit things or start from scratch. And one of the templates that it has is YouTube video thumbnails. And so for a discoverability standpoint on YouTube, it's not only important to do all that SEO stuff I was talking about with including the words that match what people are searching for, but if you're browsing YouTube and you see all the suggested videos, which ones are catching your eyes? The one with like an ugly, grainy, you can't figure out what's happening? Or if you see a lot of vloggers will do these really cool looking branded graphics on every single one that they upload that as the thumbnail. So it's eye catching, somebody immediately knows what that video is about, they know your style. So I highly recommend doing those branded custom video thumbnails if you're gonna be on YouTube.
And I have to add to that, I think, as you say, posting with purpose. There's so much noise out there, and you're competing with so many people and so many posts, and it's very hard to grab people's attention. And I think that's, again, posting with purpose is really important, and content that is eye-catching, and not just posting for the sake of posting. You know, throwing spaghetti up on the wall and hoping it's gonna stick. I definitely think that's why we're here. It's all about a strategy for sure.
Exactly.
On HootSuite also, there's an auto-schedule button, which is really cool. But it's basically you throw up your content there and you're just like, I don't know, should I post it at 9 or 11 or 2 p.m.? And you're just like, all right, HootSuite, you tell me. So it auto schedules. There's some email services that also do the same thing where it's like, just optimize it for whenever, based on historic performance, like when is the best time to send something out. And you know, if you've been doing it for long enough, that data is gonna aggregate and the systems are gonna know when is the best time for your audience. I'm a big fan of consistency, so your bio should basically be the same bio no matter where it is. You might customize it a little bit for your Twitter handle, for your Instagram, because the space is short. And then maybe on a YouTube or your website or your Facebook page, you're having like press quotes and this kind of stuff in there. But your bio should basically communicate the same kind of like genres and ideas and descriptions across the platforms.
I heard a rule of thumb that somebody told me not too long ago, that it was something to the effect of post on Facebook once a week, on Instagram once a day, and on Twitter all day long. Does that sound anything? No? Okay, so what do you think?
Hi, it's me again. So, posting to Facebook, you have to put money behind it, unfortunately. This is the social landscape that we're in right now. If you have 12,000 followers on Facebook, or likes, page likes on Facebook, probably about less than 10% of your following is gonna see that. So I'm sure you guys have seen Boost Your Posts, right? If you have your business page. I recommend putting, if you're going to post 1 time a week, I encourage 2 to 3 times a week, but who am I?
Well, I asked. I want to know what your preferred rule of thumb is.
I think it's 2 to 3 times a week, and I encourage you to put at least $20 behind your post, so that it would get in front of the people who are actually following your page. Unfortunately, the way the algorithm works, unless people are engaging with your content, it's not getting served to everyone that follows you. So you have to pay to play on Facebook.
So basically, it hurts if you're not posting on a more regular basis, because people are going to be interacting with you more, and then those algorithms are going to connect and see the dot and connect those dots. So ideally, once a day.
But why do you say $20?
It's kind of like a ballpark figure.
Yeah, Facebook gives you a range when you so when you go to boost your post, it'll give you a range of how many people you can reach. And so as you increase the dollar spend, it'll tell you, of your $12,000, you'll reach $2,000 to $3,000. And so $20 is a ballpark range depending on how big your larger following is. And even if your following isn't large and you boost your post, you can target people who aren't following your page. And so you wanna give your content enough lift so that it can get in front of as many people as possible. And $20 a week, or per post, is $60 a week, so that's a little bit expensive, especially if you're an independent or solo musician. So that's the lower end.
But if I may, I think the other thing important to hear what Whitney said is if you can't, it's not smart to post for the sake of posting. You need to post really rich and good content. You post something out there that's trash and is not very meaningful to anyone and there's no engagement on it, your future posts will get even less, will be seen by even fewer people. So when you're posting, be thoughtful about your posts, and if you post really good and really rich content and people are liking it and engaging it and commenting on it and resharing it, then even without paying or boosting your posts, you will begin to see more, it'll have higher visibility and more people will see your content. So there's a lot of myths out there about social media. And some is that you need to be on social media, so you should constantly be posting so people can see you. That is actually the opposite of the truth. So posting for the sake of posting can really hurt your social media presence.
All right, I got 2 pro tips here. So when you post on Facebook and you're boosting it to people and you're like, everyone in New Orleans, whether or not they follow me, I just want them to see this thing, right? And let's say 50% of the people who saw this thing liked it, liked the post, but they've never heard of you. They just like the piece of content. What you can do in the back end is you can go to that post and you can see who liked it. You can literally go to see what their Facebook profiles are like. But what's even cooler is that you can invite them to like your page. Like, hey, you like this piece of content, why don't you like the page, and then we'll be best buds forever. So you can do stuff like that. I would also, this is something that I do a lot for Tchoup Industries actually, is because she has a very robust, active community that's like sitting on the edge of their seats, like waiting, what's the next limited edition bag that this brand is gonna put out? So I leverage that engaged community, which a lot of independent musicians don't really have that. Maybe it's just like, 5 or 10 people that really care about you, but it's nowhere the kind of scale of some of the brands that we have in New Orleans. So the way that I leverage that, and this is a tip if you do have a built-in audience, you do have a sizable following, is ride on that organic engagement for a little while before you boost it. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but basically you boost after you kind of see what the natural traction is. Post it, let it sit for a day, maybe 2 days, just kind of see what kind of attention it gathers. And then you throw in a couple of dollars, maybe $20 or whatever it is, to get it seen by people who aren't familiar with the brand. And then that way, people who are seeing it for the first time, they're like, oh, there's like already a bunch of comments and likes on this thing, and then they go into that and they see that interaction. So that's kind of a way to also kind of shift some of the spend that you're gonna have.
Yeah. So we've been talking about using Facebook pages, brand pages, but for a lot of like solopreneurs or individual artists or individual musicians, this won't work for a band. But I'm a big fan of actually leveraging your personal profile and making it public and being really intentional about it.
Yeah.
So I have a page that's Mallory Whitfield. It has, more followers than I have as far as my Facebook friends or my Facebook personal page followers, but I get much more engagement when I post to my personal page. The other thing is that groups are a huge part of how we communicate on Facebook and how we connect with people now, and you have to use those groups as a personal page, right? So you can go and find people that are into the type of music that you do if you're going in as a group, but then if they go back and they try to find you, they're seeing your personal page. So it's about thinking really intentionally and not posting maybe, all of your random dirty secrets from your personal life or political rantings or whatever, right? Like everything that I post on my personal Facebook page is the same stuff that I would post on my very public Instagram or anywhere else. And then I try to be really intentional about who I accept friend requests from. but I do have it so that anybody can follow me. And I've seen a lot of like authors and public speakers and other like solo public figures use their personal profiles that way and leverage it to get more visibility and not have to pay for it.
Facebook groups is so freaking important. I cannot stress that enough. You can organize tours, you can find professional contacts, you can find graphic designers. You can work wonders if you're in the right groups. So, you know, I would definitely encourage people to just go and look into what groups can you join. There's a couple like Artist Managers Connect is a very popular one. There's some ones that I'm a part of that are like, you know, South Asian punks or whatever. There's probably one for Afropunk. There's one for like, you know, people making beats. There's one, whatever it is. So it's kind of like, it's just kind of like this new dynamic. So I think some people might refer to them as like micro communities or whatever. But there's a lot of these like kind of pods and micro communities that you can find that can help you accelerate the process. Even email listservs, if you get on an email listserv of, you know, people who are like booking agents or promoters or whatever, and this is a group that you can kind of post questions to. I've had immense success with, you know, just getting people on the phone or whatever as a result of engaging with these groups.
You know, I have to be honest with you guys. This is all incredible information, and this is exactly why we're here. And I hope you all appreciate this, and all you people watching on your computers or your smartphones. Hi, Nicole. But I'm getting exhausted listening to you. I'm overwhelmed. If everybody who likes a particular post, you're going to go research their Facebook page and look at their profile, invite them to like your page, and you know, the stuff you're talking about is really time consuming. You could make a full-time career out of just promoting, you know, one post. This is overwhelming stuff. So
That's why you got to hire the professionals.
Exactly. All right. Well, you can hand out your business cards when we're done. All right, sir, you had a question. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, my question is there a program or something where you could go on? Everybody's talking about time. Nobody has time. Where you could go on like an Instagram, or you could go on Facebook and say the target demographics from 6 to 9 at night is X. You know, during the daytime, a lot of the kids aren't on because they're in school. So where you can pick and choose, you know, you can go down on a list and say, okay, Facebook, the target demographics, this age group to this age group to this age group, their high time that they're on is between these hours, and you can go and pick and choose the target demographics that you want to use, that depending on what music you're playing and what music you're doing, that you might not want to, you know, you might have more adult music. So you don't want to get on you don't want to start putting on and going on and going on when you're the wrong people are looking at your posts. So is there a program out there? Is there someone that you can go to and it has everybody and, you know, all the companies, Facebook, Snapchat, all that, and it has the demographics and the time that's best that they're on?
So that's as close as you're going to get to some kind of social media strategy. What that's going to do is it's going to help you give someone a template to work from. You kind of need to do that analysis yourself or hire someone to do that analysis for your business. But what I got from your question is you're asking if there's some kind of software that will generate content based on who your audience is, right? Like you tell this
Push it out.
To push it out.
No, it's more on, let me make that decision. Let me get on
Really good on analytics.
on a program. Let me look at it and say, okay, this week I want to go 18 to 25-year-olds. I want to go. That's where I want to put my content. So you can say, okay, Facebook has them at the time I want, and Snapchat. So for those two, I'm going to put my content on that time of the day and run it for that amount of time. Now, maybe one of the other ones that says no for that same target demographics, they're on it on our platform from 6 to 8 in the morning. So then you can elect to go to there. So you're not spending all this time getting it out there, and then you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a database that's that robust, but a lot of the platforms like HootSuite or Buffer, a lot of those companies have really good blogs where they've done a lot of research and they'll share like little bits and pieces of it, whether through a blog post or an infographic. So I would say if you're thinking about like, I want to post on Facebook and reach X type of person, maybe try a Google search to see if that blog content exists to give you insight into when that demographic's on, because one of those companies might have written about it. Social Media Examiner is another really good, robust website that has a lot of great blog information.
Sprout Social, I love their blogs.
I think we'd also mention that Facebook is now targeted to sort of an older demographic. So I was doing some research for this because it's always good to read up on this. But they were saying Facebook is over 35-year-olds. Twitter, actually, just the percentage of women on Twitter versus Facebook. There are more women users on Facebook versus Twitter. Those demographics are always changing, and then obviously there's a time zone thing too. Yeah. So depending on who you're targeting and how big you are, someone's waking up on the Pacific Coast, and vice versa. So I think that, like they said, there's a lot of information out there, and it all depends on your music and your content and who you're trying to target as well. So unfortunately, maybe you have an idea. You should copyright that.
I know.
Trademark that. I mean, that might, if someone in here has the wherewithal of doing that, that's actually a very good thing. You better run with that.
Yeah.
You could become a billionaire very quickly. Run out the door now.
I think I'm about to say something jargony again, but this one is public health jargon. I think you should go after your low-hanging fruit. So starting with the people that are already engaged or following your page, and understanding, and you can look at those analytics on the back end of Facebook and Instagram, and understanding when they're on and who exactly is following you. Maybe your page skews way older and you want to be closer and attract the younger crowd. So then you have to think about what type of content is going to reach them, what type of words you're using are going to reach them. So I think while there are articles on many of the blogs, HootSuite, Sprout Social, you can look at the data on the back end of your page right now and going after the people that are already attracted to your band and making sure you're speaking to them because you don't want to lose them either. So,
and again, Mallory had said it's pages.
Yeah.
So it has to be a Facebook page to get analytics. It has to be a business page on Instagram, and I believe it's the same thing with Twitter analytics. You have to have it has to be sort of a business centered page. So if it's like a personal profile, you're not going to get those analytics. So if everyone's going to go home and see if they can find their analytics, if they don't have a page as a band, as a musician, you're not going to find those.
Unless you have a huge following already, then they'll give you your analytics because they want you to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question, Scott?
Yes,
I have
please.
these distinguished colleagues up here and these experts. So we've been up here for almost an hour and we've talked at length about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and no one has mentioned Snapchat up here.
Right.
So I'd like to.
He did.
He mentioned it.
Wanted to get some.
The gentleman fronted. Yeah.
I want to ask, what are you all's thoughts on Snapchat as a platform and specifically for musicians? Where's society going with Snapchat? That's a big one.
I'll let you take that.
So Snapchat, for the longest time, did not have a feature where you can discover other people. And so I think that they shot themselves in the foot because they didn't have it for so long. You can discover people now, but so many people have engaged with the platform in such a different way that people don't use it to discover other people. They either use it to follow their celebrities and see what they're doing behind the scenes, or to follow their friends. And so I think it's a lot more of like, Snapchat seems like a personal fetish. Like, I secretly follow Kim Kardashian and I hate her. But like, I watch what she does. And so I think that people use Snapchat in such a different way. It's not worth spending the time planning to engage on there. That's my personal.
It's gonna be hard to figure out what your ROI is on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Is basically, you can do it if it's a personal fetish. It's just something that you're doing naturally. Go for it. Just be yourself. I use Snapchat in a very strange way. So I basically got the spectacles a few years ago, and then it wasn't cool anymore. But I was just like, yo, these are awesome. I want to take some videos while I'm up on stage. I'm gonna put these glasses on. And then I also found out that I can export the video from the spectacles and post that wherever I want to. So it's kind of like a gimmick that I do on stage, where I put on the spectacles if there's a good crowd, obviously. I turn them on, as I'm playing and doing whatever. and then at the end of the night, I upload those, the ones that I like, to my phone or laptop, and then I'll post those. And it's just like a gimmick. I feel like that's kind of the overarching theme that I get from Snapchat, is like very gimmicky. I know that they had some layoffs that happened in their like advertising and sales. So I'm not sure what the health of the company and the platform is. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but it's definitely like kind of the punching bag at this point, because so many people have just like taken what Snapchat is, that stories feature that you find in so many places, including WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram. Everyone has that now, the 24-hour content that's going to disappear, whatever. That was the whole thing about Snapchat when it first came out, right? And so it's kind of, it's really riding on celebrities using it, and some people who just kind of like the interface and the engagement that you get on there. But for bands, it's probably, at least in my opinion, one of the last things that you would want to think about, really.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the way of the world, and their fads, and I think social media, it's such a changing landscape. And again, I think people really need to focus on time, how you want to utilize your time, and who are you really going to be targeting using these different platforms. I think also Snapchat, I think that demographic's like 12-year-olds to like 22-year-olds or something.
Yeah.
My niece loves it. She's 13. She's on that like 24/7 with her friends. But again, are you really going to be targeting people who are going to come to your shows, who are going to buy your albums, who are going to basically put money in your pocket to survive as musicians? Again, I think there are creative ways to utilize a lot of these platforms, but again, I do think you really need to figure out how you want to utilize your time in the best way, especially if you're an up-and-coming musician and you don't have that extra cash, or you can't hire professionals to help you promote yourself.
One other thing that's become very casual, culturally speaking, is the geofilters. So, and those are very cheap to kind of execute. So it's basically you as a Snapchat user, maybe you're doing an album release, or maybe you're doing, a lot of people use them for their weddings, or even festivals use it a lot. It's a very economic way to get brand awareness. So again, top of the funnel, you're not really going to expect people to do much more than just like, oh, this is a unique, different filter that I've never seen before, and it says, Jazz Fest in the year, and they take a selfie with their friends, and then you have that impression. So there's certain ways to kind of use it, and I do think that geofilters are very effective, especially for festivals, for people who are trying to brand some kind of event, like if it's a conference or something, it also makes sense to do that. But for bands, it's kind of, I feel like it's a reach.
1 second. So, so very briefly, I just want to mention that our last panel, which was a couple of weeks ago, which was on how to afford a music video, lasted for 2.5 hours. And the one before that, which was on website platforms, was nearly 3 hours. So let's try not to go that long tonight. And
I am hoping to have dinner.
yes, indeed. And I've got 2 pages worth of questions that I could be asking, but I'd rather that you all ask the questions that you want to ask. So please, if you have a question, just come up and use the microphone so that the people watching online can hear what you have to say.
My question is about planning and timing, mostly from a filmmaker perspective. Because as a filmmaker, unlike a musician, eventually you're going to ask for money.
Yes.
And just to plan a film itself, thinking about budget and thinking about not the content, of course, but just making a film, you're going to have content. But how do you build social media in there where you're keeping the audience engaged, but you haven't raised all the money? You're going to ask someone for money eventually. That's the deliberate thinking about it. But what if you can't pull it off, and you put yourself out there and you've asked people for money, but you haven't been able to finish the film? How do you rebound from that? And also timing, because film is about time, and sometimes it takes a long time to make a film because you're not getting the money. And that's what I found for myself before, and I don't want to make the same mistake.
How are you?
Particularly short films.
How are you raising the money? Are you using Kickstarter or any crowdfunding platforms for it, or?
Crowdfunding, things like that. And I didn't know a lot about social Right away, I have this big audience in front of me, and I don't want to make, and I don't want to make that same mistake twice.
Sure,
So-
sure. Comments?
Very interesting question.
Yeah.
I think what I'll go back to something we all have said up here earlier. If we believe that video is the most powerful form of social media content, and you're a filmmaker, I would kind of hypothesize that you're starting off ahead of the curve because you already have really, really good, rich content. So I would kind of tease that content out on an ongoing basis, and even set your audience expectation. They can receive a new clip or a new trailer, and that's how you get people hooked in and following you. And then you can even take and repurpose that, right? Saying, so as you're out there raising money or asking people for funds, you can say, look, this is the amount of people that's coming to my page to see my trailer, to engage with me, and that can even kind of help spur your fundraising efforts.
And I think you'd also mentioned you're doing a documentary, and you said it was at an Entergy event.
Oh, they actually allowed us just to
I'm sorry.
promote what we were actually going to do in the film. So
Which is great. I think that if whomever you were in touch with at Entergy, they could have probably helped you out. They could have maybe tweeted that out, Facebooked it out, and they've got thousands of followers. I also think for musicians, tagging, sponsors, tagging music venues, they'll retweet and they'll repost. So if you're playing at the House of Blues and you are tagging them or saying where you're at, then the likelihood is they're going to see it. Their social marketing people are going to see that, and then they're going to retweet it, and then that's free advertising on very big platforms. That's an easy, that's a low-hanging fruit thing to do. So you should always be doing that wherever you're playing, wherever you're promoting, at a bar, at a venue. Make sure that you're tagging those folks because they'll likely share your stuff.
Go ahead.
Well, I was so my partner is actually a filmmaker, and he's done a couple of Kickstarters to raise money for music videos. He shot a music video for Katie Red, and he did a documentary recently. And the thing that we found in doing those Kickstarters and others that I've watched is that it's so much about the actual human relationships. It's less about like spray and pray on your social media and having a huge customer base. The way that you get that sort of thing funded is doing Facebook messages directly to the people that you know in your contacts, and text messaging them and emailing them and reaching out in person. So in the meantime, it's more about whether you do it via a fan page or whether you do it via your personal page. It's about building those relationships and being vulnerable and letting people see behind the scenes, right? So like, it's not being narcissistic to just talk in a genuine, authentic way about what you're doing and let people in, and sometimes ask for help. Yeah. And it might not be money help, it might be help with ideas or help with a decision, right? Like, be genuine, and people want to be a part of that.
I think the key of what Mallory is saying also is to have a place to send people when you want to garner that money. So if you don't have a Kickstarter, Facebook has now enabled everybody to be able to raise money on their platform as well. You have to be able to send people somewhere. Yeah. So if you people like to be told what to do. We're lazy. Right. We like to be told, click like if you want a surprise, or click the link in my bio to hear some more music. You have to tell people what to do. So if you're asking them for something, then tell them to go somewhere, whether it's your Kickstarter or wherever, your website, wherever you're doing that crowdsourced funding.
And I think that's what's my failure, because I was like, oh, we're going to get our energy, we have this big crowd, but I never thought about what to do after we get this right, and that's where I made my mistake. That's why I want to focus more on the planning part of it, and just not having a big audience.
It's 100% about planning. So Give NOLA was happening earlier this month, right? So like at Propeller, that's one of the important days over there. So we definitely had kind of this like anticipation pre-event, and then everyone was like, go, go, go for 48 hours to raise that money. And then there's a post-event kind of expectation. So you're absolutely right that there needs to be this kind of crescendo that you want to build, and have your content schedule kind of reflect that crescendo as well.
And also, maybe you have already reached out, but there are so many amazing filmmakers in the city, and just emailing them and asking them for coffee. Yep. Some people will not respond, but you'd be really surprised. People will respond to an email, or even just, I have a couple questions for you, can I email them to you? And if they can't meet you in person. But I think, especially people with a lot of experience, because we've all had to start from somewhere to get to where we're at, and we're all still growing, right? But people helped everybody along the way. So I definitely think reaching out to other people who are in your field, you should be able to get some feedback.
And since you're probably on our email list, then you may know that we do 4 Sync Up Cinema events a year now. The last one was on April 25th, so these are quarterly events that are in this room and in the courtyard outside. They're screenings, panel discussions, and networking events, so they're good opportunities to link. So while we're on this subject, should we be even thinking about social media as a platform for generating revenue? Does it have a role for that, or should we really only be approaching social media as a tool for public relations and building a fan base?
Well, I think you have to be intentional about how you're doing it. I think you have to make that decision either way and how it fits into your overall business model as a musician or an artist, because you are a business. One platform that kind of crosses that boundary between social media and raising money that we haven't mentioned yet is Patreon, which, if you're not familiar with it, is basically, it's like kind of like a cross between Kickstarter and how you would support, WWZ or local NPR radio station, right? So you can either support an artist or a creator that you like on a monthly basis. It can be as little as $1. There are a few artists that I personally support for like $1 or $3 or $5 a month, and they have different pledge levels. Amanda Palmer, if anybody's not familiar with Amanda Palmer and hasn't read her book, The Art of Asking, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to read The Art of Asking, because she's got so much great information about how she did her huge Kickstarter, how she got into using Patreon, and how she's built a fan base since way before social media existed and connected with them. But she's a user of Patreon, and Patreon, you can connect with people behind the scenes. So at different pledge levels, you can offer them different things that build that personal connection and create more of a community around what you do. So there's certain artists that I subscribe to for $5, and they share certain things that they only share with like $5 and up subscribers. They don't share with just their $1 fan base. And so it's building this sort of like exclusivity. You're in the club. It's a different level of just the people that were going to casually come to your show, but those are the super fans, and they want to support you, right? So like one of the artists that I know, she does paintings, and people, they can't fill their whole house with paintings. There's only so much space, right? And you might only release one record every 2 years, so they can't buy a record from you every single month, but maybe they want to support you more. So setting that up as an option can be a way to also make money, maybe not a lot, maybe a lot, but also build a stronger relationship with those super fans.
Amanda Palmer famously got in a lot of trouble for asking her fans for doing stuff without compensation. So we remember that story. But on the point of using social media as a platform for generating revenue, of course, we all know that musicians historically made their living from selling recorded music. And with the demise of the recording industry, they're now looking to sell concert tickets, or in many cases still trying to sell recorded music, or the things that they have to sell. Are there any tips that you have if the objective is to get more people to buy tickets to my next show? Are there things that I should be doing on social media as opposed to through my email list or buying ads in the Music Monthly or whatever that are known to be more effective?
So I'll chime in on this. If you're trying to drive someone back to a transaction, buying a ticket or something like that, social media is hugely important and effective in that. We just recently did a first-time event 2 weeks ago on May 5th. It was an out-of-market event in Atlanta. And we doubled down on social media as what we were going to use to push ticket sales for this event. We had some paid social in there. We really was very aggressive and deliberate about activating influencers, lifestyle influencers, wine influencers, fashion influencers. But I think the simple answer to your question is, can social media be effective in helping drive people to a transaction? I fundamentally believe yes, and I'm a believer in it. We sold 2,500 tickets to the event we just did in Atlanta, and it was supported with PR, and it was But it was so PR and social. There was no other paid advertising out there. There was no print ads, there was no radio, there was no television. PR, editorial opportunities, editorial coverage, and social and activating influencers. I think we activated about 30 influencers. And those influencers were sharing content on our behalf.
Can you explain what you mean about activating an influencer? What specifically does that mean?
Right. So someone who is perceived to influence the culture. If it's the fashion culture, the entertainment culture, the nightlife culture, they usually have rather large followings. I think there's a number where you're actually an influencer. I think it's 7,500 followers or something.
Yeah.
So some people have different numbers.
So there's different. There's like micro influencers, which has like 5,000. Huh?
I told you she's the expert. Micro influencers.
There's micro influencers. They have smaller followings, around 5. We say 5,000, like 20 even. Oh, sorry. Just kidding. 5,000 to like 20,000, and then you get higher and higher. So they come with price tags, though.
Oh yeah. Now, are these celebrities or just people that happen to have big followings, or?
Social celebrities.
Yeah, they're social media. They're influencers of culture. So
So these are people that my kids know, but I don't.
They're
Not
like
necessarily.
tastemakers, what we used to call tastemakers.
They're like Whitney.
Right.
Exactly like Whitney.
So basically, they're paid to
So
then
we didn't in this
promote
instance.
your thing. So basically these people are paid to promote, and because they have so many followers.
So how do you engage them? Do you send them a private message and say, I'll give you $50 if you repost my thing? I mean, what do you do?
So one thing, we didn't have cash, which is why we weren't running out the advertising. So we tried to appeal to them about the newness of the concept, the creativity of the concept, and the ability for them to be providing new, unique content to their audience who's looking for this type of content. So we actually didn't pay a single influencer. Now, we have clients that Whitney and I share that have large budgets, and we have paid influencers in those scenarios. But the way you become an influencer is about always having great content. And we thought that our concept was new and unique enough and fun enough and sexy enough that we were able to engage influencers without paying them. And they came on board. They thought it was new and unique and exciting. And they did that for us. So they would create their own custom content and push out through their channels and invite their audience. Meet me at this event is going to be great.
And so if it's, I don't know, Kanye or whatever, do you send them a message and say, or do you contact their publicist or something? What do you do?
When I use the terminology influence, I think influencers and celebrities are very different people. So
Okay.
I am not speaking of Kanye or Beyonce's or any of those people. People in a city who people in that city understand this person is in tune to the culture. So it can be a food culture. It could be someone who's a foodie and they're always recommending the hottest new restaurant and the most exotic foods to try. So it could be any one of us up here because they say, hey, I know they understand the music scene in New Orleans. I know they understand the nightlife scene, the fashion scene, whatever the case may be. So it's not that level of influence. We certainly couldn't afford those.
But you'll
people.
reach out to them
We'll
and
reach
say,
out to
hey,
them.
look, I've got this cool thing.
We'll
And will
email
you just
them.
ask them? Say,
We'll-
would you do this? Will you share it?
We'll email them, we'll DM them and say, hey, we think your audience would like this. We'd love for you to create some content and share this with your audience. If you do so, we'll do this for you. One is, hey, we'll give you tickets to give away to your audience. So now you're pulling more people to your page. So we'll give you tickets, influencer. We'll give you tickets to give away. That helps build their following and build their audience. Oh, and we'll host you and give you bottles of champagne and things like that.
So, I'm sorry, if I may.
Yes.
I assume that every band in here is now thinking, okay, do I have any influencers that like my band page? And can I reach out to that person and say, you love my band, how about I give you 10 tickets to my next show and you can offer them for free to your people? Is that essentially
So
what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
The way that okay, so first of all, going back to the original question about leveraging social media to drive revenue, I've seen a lot of bands do the pre-order thing. You have a release coming out and you're asking people to pre-order, and then you're taking down names or whatever, and you know that you're going to be selling these people 20 CDs or whatever. The influencer conversation is very interesting because it's like very fluid and there's different entities that do it in different ways. I've tweeted at people and then they respond and then it goes to DM and then it goes to email. But in the beginning, it's a very soft thing of like, I don't even know if you're comfortable doing this. So let me ask the question, like, do you ever work with brands or bands in this manner? Like, would you be interested in a ticket giveaway? Do you even I see that you're following me, but do you even like the music, or did you like follow me accidentally type of thing, you know? So kind of starting is a little bit more soft-spoken and kind of easing into that conversation. And then in the music and entertainment world, a lot of your influencers also happen to be radio hosts, or they're music journalists, or they're something to that capacity, maybe even a professor in music. And I think that's something that you just need to develop. Just like you have a list of venues that you want to hit up and perform at, you should have a list of influencers where it's just like, wow, it would be so amazing if, you know, I don't know, Reed Martin was like into my music, and that's like a relationship that I would love to build, you know, just kind of having that as a target for yourself, making that your goal, and then, you know, thinking about, okay, what are the different ways that I can maybe communicate with that person, you know, maybe instead of going to them direct, maybe there's a mutual connection, someone that can introduce you to them, and then that way the relationship feels at least a little bit more organic rather than going cold and reaching out to them online.
Well, I think Reed is actually watching online right now, so we can have somebody tweet at him right now.
And one thing I'll say around this topic of influencers, if that is something that any musicians think they want to kind of use as a tactic, influencers are usually content purists. They never want their channel to seem like they're selling something or represent. So it would never have big brand logos on it or big band logos on it or these very overt advertisements. So the influencers you reach out to should already have some relevance to your genre of music, to your band, to your audience, and then they can organically share content that they would ordinarily be sharing anyway. So we had this great fashion influencer. I mean, she had over about 150,000 followers, and we wanted her, and she did this this kind of series. She did it for like 4 days about the types of she was looking forward to the event, the types of things you should wear to the event. So she would dress up. The event was themed. It was pink and white. It was a rosé champagne festival, and she would put on a different pink dress every day for about 4 days. And she got so much engagement and drove so many people back to our page. I mean, it was great, and the content was just as rich and organic as everything that had been in her timeline for the previous year.
But she did that because the content that you were trying to promote was of interest to her. And that
her audience.
And she felt it was of interest to her audience. So she had her own self-interest as opposed to you paying her.
You're correct.
Wow,
They're purist.
Really interesting. So a couple of years ago at the Sync Up conference, we did an entire panel that did not go on for 2.5 hours, but this one is threatening to, so we're going to have to wrap it up before too long. And it was on this exact topic of converting followers into customers. And we talked about nothing but. And the upshot was, and this, Mallory, this gets back to the point that you've raised a couple of times now about being vulnerable online. And the point was essentially, it's okay to ask people to buy your record, to buy a ticket to your show, to give you money for your crowdfunding campaign or Patreon or what it might be, but not right away. You have to build up a relationship with them, and that these people who may have liked your page, they have to feel that you are investing something in them as well. That, you know, so you're sharing personal information so that this fan will know when your birthday is, may know what your kids' names are, may have some other personal information, so they feel that there's a connection with you that you build up over time through various types of information that you share, so that finally, when you get to that big ask, okay, my record's coming out, I need y'all to dig in your wallet and, you know, help me pay for this record that I just spent $5,000 making. You know, so that there's a trick to being able to get to convert followers into customers.
I think that's definitely a good point. I work for a nonprofit. I said the Youth Empowerment Project. It's a nonprofit, right? So we're always fundraising. We're always asking donors for something. But part of that is you cannot ask every single day for donations. People want to see where their money's going. They want to see the programs. They want to see success stories from young people, and that translates to musicians as well. There's actually a musician that I was following, an up-and-coming musician, and this person would only post asking for money or asking to, you know,
I'm broke again.
I'm broke again, or my album just came out, or always asking for something, and I unfollowed that person. So you also, there is that threat of sort of upsetting people or annoying people, and you don't want to lose followers. So I think it is a really, really fine balance.
It's all about the dating. You're
Yes.
still
Yes.
dating them.
Back to Tinder, yes, swipe right.
You can't ask somebody to go home on the first date. You can't. So you have to court them
That's
through
for
the
Grindr.
process. You really, everybody has different standards, but you want to court them through that process. You don't want to go and ask them for something and they don't even know who you are yet.
But again, I just want to reiterate that, Cleveland, what you're talking about doing and this strategy of engaging with influencers and getting them to help you promote your project, incredibly time consuming. I mean, this is real work.
It's
It
worthwhile.
was. It absolutely was.
Yeah, but it's worthwhile. Like the return that you get is like you're blasting your message that you just sent to one person, maybe on an email, saying like, hey, this is our mission. Here are some content ideas, but you just do you, and then letting them decide what to do with that content. I mean, that's amplification, right?
Yeah.
That's like you have a very specific thing, and that you're reaching out to these people that are in a different city. So they're actually doing a lot of legwork and making a lot of impact for you. So.
And also, you get the cool factor. I mean, advertising is I just heard a commercial on the radio. I saw an ad in a magazine. Influencers make you part of the culture. It validates, and we were talking about a particular event, but music is the exact same way.
Mm-hmm.
There is a unmeasurable monetary value in the cool factor, and I don't really know how to put what that figure is, but everyone knows that it is much cooler to go to this place versus that place, to be at this event versus that event, or say I'm listening to this band versus that band. And influencers help you they expedite your ability to have the cool factor.
And also, I mean, to your point, in this oversaturated media landscape that we all live in, we're all completely overwhelmed with the information and the recommendations that are coming at us constantly. And so we all rely in one way or another on influencers, tastemakers, filters, whatever you want to call it. It might be a particular music critic that you like their writing, or somebody whose opinions you trust. And so if you hear it from that person, you're much more likely to be engaged with it than if it's just an ad on the radio or something. And we get those kinds of emails all day long. People who may have gotten a grant from us, hey, my movie is coming out, here's the flyer, will you post it on your page because you've got 25,000 followers and I have 5, and I'd much rather it get posted on your page.
Right. In the world of music, sometimes that translates into you reaching out to an influential producer and having them do a remix of your song. It might be a group that's known to do a cappella versions or covers of songs and saying like, hey, this is our track, would you do a cover of this? We love your YouTube channel. That's kind of what it could look like as well.
Yeah, I have a nephew who's a rapper, and he made a really good song and video, and he put it up on his YouTube channel and got 30 likes, something like that. But an influencer who has a lot of celebrity friends and clients put it on her page, and it went to over 1 million views, like within a week.
Right.
So, but he still doesn't have a record deal. So we're trying. Sir, did you have a question?
I was going to add the point about Dall with crowdfunding. They raised, I think, $684,000 through 11,000 of their fans. Obviously, they've been around for 20, 25, 30 years. I was going to ask specifically about hashtags because I didn't really hear anybody mention that. I heard about tagging on, YouTube videos, but I didn't hear anybody mention hashtags. So
We're trying to keep a jargon-free panel here, but let's talk hashtags.
Hashtags are important.
Great question.
I think as a solo musician or even a band, you should have a branded hashtag, period. So you should own your name or own the branded hashtag so that people can discover more and more content about you. There are also other hashtags in which communities can find and discover you as well. And so Instagram has this really cool thing now where if you type in music up on top, it'll show you other options of other hashtags that people are using to connect through music. Hashtags are important. They can come off spammy, so you don't want to be like, my name's Whitney, hashtag swag, hashtag like all these things. You really want your hashtags to be meaningful, and the same with your your caption. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be jargony. The same with your.
You mean the words that you write?
Yes, the words you write underneath whatever content you're putting out. You want it to be meaningful, and you want the hashtags to be meaningful as well. Not hashtag I just walked through the door. It's hashtag Music Monday, something that actually connects to a community of people who use those hashtags to discover other things. Geotagging is really important. I've actually been testing on my personal account, and I haven't been using hashtags lately, none. And I've been geotagging everything, and I'm moved to assume, which social media is full of assumptions, I'm moved to assume that geotagging has become even more important than hashtagging.
Can you explain geotagging for those of us who aren't as familiar?
So if you are a musician living in New Orleans and people are coming to New Orleans to look for things to do, they're going to the New Orleans hashtag to see what are people doing, what are their experiences in New Orleans. So you should be geotagging anytime you're performing here, or just as a New Orleans band, entering the location of where you're at. So even if if you don't want to tell people you're at home in your house and what location you're at, do New Orleans, Louisiana as a full geotag option on Instagram. If you're in the Lower Garden District, geotag Lower Garden District. You want people to see the experience they can expect in the spaces that they're looking at.
So this says that you are at that place, as opposed to hashtag New Orleans.
Yes.
Right.
And also Twitter is always telling you the hashtags that are trending even across the country. So you can hop on board a big, whatever people are talking about, and put that hashtag in and be part of that conversation, and somebody in wherever Canada might see you there, and you're exposing yourself not only locally, but nationally, internationally as well.
There's so much that can be said about hashtags. What I will say in terms of music, I've done these like hashtag intercepts before. They kind of had mixed results, but basically I have there's a festival happening, let's say South by, and I'm blasting my content towards, using the hashtag South by Southwest, but I'm not actually there. There's that kind of approach, which is really not a very good way to spend your time. There's other stuff like Record Store Day. If you can kind of figure out how to organize your content so that you have something for Record Store Day or what have you, that's not a bad way to go about it. A little bit more targeted, right? Thinking about hashtags in terms of these kind of buckets, right? So like when I did my band's hashtag strategy, I had like stuff that's New Orleans specific. So like NOLA, follow my NOLA, only Louisiana, one time in NOLA, whatever it is. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. And that's just one bucket, right? The other bucket is like something that's, let's say, more lifestyle oriented, like music saved my life, or, new music, or NOLA music, something like that. That's maybe a little bit more in the lifestyle bucket. Another bucket would be, let's say it's more identity based. So, Arab American or Kuwait or wherever part of the world or whatever, kind of subculture community you're a part of, putting those, treating that as kind of like and then using all three buckets or one of them depending on what the content is, obviously because you want the hashtag to be relevant to what you're posting. So, it's a very robust conversation. There's, again, a lot of resources around it. Another website that I could also add is Hypebot. So that's a good one that has a lot of practical advice that could help you out for if you're a musician or a band.
And I think Whitney had said that you should have your own hashtag, because if you are performing at a show or at a venue, people will put in their post, and you can even say before a gig or after a gig or whatever, please hashtag at YEP, it's support YEP youth, or hashtag YEP, right? So like I've been starting this big hashtag that people come and they come to our events and they come to our whatever, but a lot of people are picking up on the hashtag support YEP youth.
All right, I see we have a couple of more questions that I do want to get to, but if you'll bear with me for just one second. While we're on the subject of tagging, there is one thing that I really did want to ask about before the evening is over. So one of the things that I have noticed within the past year or so is a dramatic increase in the number of times somebody, whether it's a band or somebody else that's trying to promote a project or an event or something that's going on, they will, on Facebook, tag me and 150 other people.
Don't do that.
Thank you.
I hate that.
I hate it. I hate it.
happens to me.
Stop tagging me. I'm talking to you. Stop tagging me. I hate that. I just had to say that. I'm sorry. Okay, are we all in agreement on this?
Yes.
We're in agreement.
I mean,
Except
I get it.
no, Mallory.
Well, no, I wasn't gonna, don't do the thing you described. Don't do that.
But
I think if it's like, if you're not mass spamming, like when I posted about this event,
Yeah.
for example,
We
I
all tagged
tagged
each
the
other.
other people that were on
Yeah.
this panel.
And I was like, who is this? What?
Yeah, like, I mean, you guys were like, oh, why are you spamming me, right? Like,
But not
that's different.
150 people.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if you're gonna do it very small measure, be very intentional, and like, hopefully like already know the people or like have conversed with them in some other way before you just tag them.
Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. I feel so much better. Okay, sir.
Yes, my name is Herbert Richardson, and what y'all have been describing and what Sync Up is about is the business of music. And the legislation came out at the federal level, out of the House, 100% support. It's in the Senate now.
Yep.
Contact your senator, find out where it is and what's in it for you. Thank you.
Wait, you talking about net neutrality? What are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the business of music, the legislation of how music is going to be legislated. How
Yep.
much, how it's going to operate, how much money can be made, how your taxes are going to be paid, and all of the things related to all of the business of music, including retirement.
So he's referring, I think you're referring to the Music Modernization Act.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
it.
There you go. Thank you, Google.
Okay. All right. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the one that the Recording Academy,
Yeah,
the
that's
Grammy
more on
folks
like
are.
the royalties and publishing side, I think. Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you, sir. Next question, please.
Very important.
Yes. So, you know the verified blue check on an artist that's like, not even like someone that's like extremely globally big, but like someone that's like well known. How do you get that?
Very hard. It's very hard.
Verified accounts, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
Can you explain more of what this is for those of us who aren't familiar?
So it's so that people who would potentially duplicate your page, so people know they landed in the right spot, and they know that Banned Whitney is actually Banned Whitney and not a troll or somebody who's stealing my content and pretending to be me.
Or a fan page?
Or a fan page. It is very hard to get a blue check. Instagram does not have any protocols or steps to get it right now.
So this is to verify that it's the authentic
Yeah.
page of yours, as opposed to, like we said, a fan page or something. Okay.
Yeah, like we even struggle internally to get them for client accounts because there's just no, like they do not have protocols to get it. Some people are just lucky, and some people have been duplicated so many times that Instagram sees priority in making sure that they are verified. It's hard. I'm sorry.
Good luck.
That was a good.
Did you want to add something?
Well, I have a blue check next to my name.
Fancy.
No, but the only reason I was in broadcast, so I was an anchor reporter for 15 years. I worked at Channel 4, WWL TV. So I think it's also if you're an expert in a certain field,
Yeah, that too.
if you are a public figure, if you are a governor, if you are president, whomever. But yes, it is. It's about expertise, but then it's also depending on what you're doing. And they reach out to you.
Yeah.
They reach out to you.
Yeah,
Is there
they-
anything that you can do to reach out to the platform and say, hey, give me a check?
I reach the platform every day. Can't get a blue check.
You want me to get? I'll give you mine.
No, I don't want one.
You don't want one?
I'm talking about for my client accounts. It's like so like they do not have any protocols around it.
Okay. All right. Well,
I
thank
guess
you.
the better question is like, why would you want a blue check, right? Like, I don't know if it, I mean, besides verification, this is the official account of whatever. I don't know if it like, I think of it as maybe like a vanity thing. Like, it's not really going to lead to more followers. It's not really going to help you sell more records. It's not going to help you get better gigs. So I'm not sure that it's like really an important focus even, you know?
Well, there's another band called Coasiana out there.
Yeah, right.
How y'all doing? My name is Kevin Penn. I'm a hip-hop rap artist. And my question is, how long should an artist promote a single or project without feeling like they're over spamming their audience? Like, I heard everybody say like 3 days out of a week, but what about if you promote like an album or a single?
I can comment on this.
So you mean more of an extended campaign for something that's a project that you really want to promote for a long time?
Like if somebody within my following, they purchase from me, like, and I keep posting their content, like, you know, I don't want them to unfollow
Yeah,
me.
so your release strategy, you should think about it 3 months out. Okay, so the people who are writers, the people in radio, very slow. Oh my goodness. So you need to really reach out to those people as soon as humanly possible, get a preview, get some kind of material in their hand, follow up with them every 2 weeks or something just to make sure, hey, did you listen to it? Does it seem relevant? Would you talk about it? So there's gonna be some emailing and things that are happening behind the scene before it even comes to the surface. In terms of, and it's kind of depending on your audience, but you do want to think about it 3 months out. Even if it's just like 2 tracks or a single or a music video, think about it in terms of 3 months leading up to it, because not all media ecosystems work as fast.
Right.
So, you know, as you're leading up to it, you want to start with like, you know, press and radio. Maybe 2 months before, you start reaching out to blogs and maybe some influencers. 1 month out, now you're talking to your community, to your audience, to people that are directly connected. Maybe that's when you post a teaser or something like that, just to let people know, hey, something's coming up in 1 month. Maybe it's you working on your Pro Tools or Logic or what have you, just to kind of convey that, hey, I got something coming up, right? And then, yeah, when it comes to the actual kind of like posting the content, yeah, probably that has the shelf life of like 2 weeks maximum, 1 week. You know, if it's an album, you want to give it more posts, because obviously it's like, you know, 10, 12 tracks versus like just one.
Right.
But if it is just a single, or if it is just something that's relatively lighter, that's kind of the way that you want to structure it. And again, think about what's going to happen after that release happens. So you're going to put out that video, what's going to happen after that track or video comes out? Maybe you have an interview lined up, maybe you have the big gig lined up, maybe you always, it's this kind of like cyclical game where you always have to think about what's going to happen after that big, like, you know, unveiling of something.
I'm not a musician, but I love consuming media on social channels. And I think that my favorite artists just have variation in their content. So maybe you post a video and you leave that alone for a week or so, and then give me a picture, or then give me an Instagram story. Just hit me at different touch points. I'm not gonna unfollow you. Your followers are not gonna unfollow you if they believe in your craft, but you can't spam them with the same video every week. Give me a different part of the video. Right. Give me some different lyrics. Give me a quote graphic. People love quote graphics. Yeah. Give me some of your lyrics on a quote graphic, and that'll make me look at that image. You wanna give variations in your media so that people are digesting it in different ways. It takes a couple of touch points for people to actually convert into a fan, or convert and go press the link in your bio and listen to the song, but give me different variations in how you're offering what is coming towards me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, what she said.
All right, so I promised that we would not be going for 2 hours tonight, so we're going to wrap this up. I just want to mention very quickly that I know that there was a lot of really dense information that came out tonight. Y'all are really experts in the field. This has been one of the most chock full of information panels that we've done in a long time, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can clap for that. So if there was anything that went past you that you want to try to recapture, the video from this panel is being broadcast right now on Facebook Live through the page of WWOZ, radio station WWOZ New Orleans. So the video is there. It's also on WWOZ.org's their website, the video archive, and it will be on the Jazz and Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel within a couple of weeks. So this information will be available for you to revisit. So in closing, if I could you each just very briefly, is there a certain thing that if you had one piece of advice for people not to post, what is something that they should not do on social media? And you can take that however you like.
Because I'm a journalist by trade,
Yes.
spelling errors.
Spelling errors, okay.
So I do think, you know, people are following you, we all get lazy, but just constant typos and constant spelling errors in this day and
Proofread
age.
your copy?
When you're tweeting and people just do things fast, come on now. Like, I do think spelling and typos.
How do you feel about punctuation?
That also drives me crazy, but you can only pick and choose your battles, you know? So, you know, spelling, I'd say, and typos, just clean copy or clean words, clean content, I think is key.
Cleveland, pet peeves on social media?
It's the one you mentioned. I get a notification, such and such has tagged you and 99 others.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so lame.
How fast do you reach for the untag button?
And I guess it's new. Now you have to like add to timeline and all that. I just ignore it. I delete them. I just disengage with that person entirely. It also seems kind of lame and desperate.
Forever.
It's lame. So yeah.
They're cut off. Okay. Aziz?
I'm really struggling with this one.
You can't think of anything not to post?
I'm very forgiving when I see people's content. I'm just like, you know what? They're just not as, they're not at the same level or whatever. So there aren't things that really like.
It's on my level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, that's-
So I'm very forgiving. But on the grammar and spelling side, there's a tool for that called Grammarly.
I use it.
I
I love
love
it.
it.
So, and that's being advertised on YouTube. It's a lot of people use it. So I'm definitely keeping my copy clean and correct, thanks to Grammarly. But yeah, I guess the thing that you should not do is what you mentioned. Just like slapping on a link that's from a different platform. For some reason, it's just like, I don't know. It kind of rubs me the wrong way, just because like it's not like pristine or something. But again, like I really go down a lot of rabbit holes on the internet, and sometimes that rabbit hole starts from like a really bad piece of content. I'm just like, who is this person? And then I'm just like, wow, this person's like really eccentric. They barely know how to use digital technology, but there's something interesting about their persona. So I don't know. So I don't really have any kind of like, do not do this kind of POV there.
Can't help watching the train wreck. Okay.
I have something.
Yes.
It's wonderful to be vulnerable on the internet. It is not wonderful to be angry. I think that there's a way. Actually, you could just have a private profile. If you need to be angry on the internet, have a private profile. I think negativity just rubs people the wrong way. It's nice to be open and like share your experience and saying like, I'm struggling with this. Here's my issue. Do you guys have any solutions? That's a conversation. But if you are writing in caps and telling me about your problems and just like going for it, I'm gonna unfollow you. And so you want to, unless that's your thing, if that's your angle and you're like heavy metal, angry, yeah. Like if that's your shtick, go for it. But other than that, negativity and like just bad, like things that Donald Trump do, don't do that.
That's what journals are for. Or therapists,
Yeah.
or your cat or your
Or
dog
have
to talk
a private
to.
profile,
whatever.
and nobody follows you, and you have to put it on the internet and it has to live somewhere. Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I would say piggybacking on that, don't post anything that you're going to regret 5 or 10 years down the road, because we all think that this stuff people don't screenshot, but it gets screenshotted and stuff gets passed around behind the scenes. And people, even if they don't comment, they see things.
Mm-hmm.
They see the conversations. And also, don't post drunk. Just put your phone away if you were intoxicated.
I got one.
Okay. Oh, you got one. Okay,
I
good.
got one. Okay, so this is actually a really helpful tip. Do not only post about yourself. So as a band, as a musician, it pays a lot to, hey, my friends who, we opened up for them and they have a music video coming out. Or if there's a lyric that really caught your attention, like celebrate the wins of others and your peers and integrate that into your social feeds. Because I do get sick and tired of, the band just like talking about themselves and kind of patting themselves on the back or constantly asking for money or what have you. So.
Okay, well, I've got one. Not that anybody asked, but I just this morning, I was on Facebook and I saw a post by a really well-known national musician, not anybody from New Orleans. It's a female singer-songwriter that had a big hit record years ago and has a huge fan base. And she posts from her personal account as opposed to a band page. And she's constantly posting what seems to me obvious cliche engagement questions, like, you know, she's a singer-songwriter living in Los Angeles, recording for a major label, and posting a question like, who's got recommendations for a book that I should read? Or who makes the best mac and cheese in San Francisco? Or stuff like that. And I'm like, really? This is what you wanted to engage with us on that? It just seems to me to be like a ridiculous waste of time. But I don't know.
She might be lonely.
She might be lonely. All right,
She
well,
just really loves mac and cheese.
I hope she's watching now, and I didn't call your name, but you know I'm thinking about you.
Shade. Wow.
All right, so everybody, please, once again, give a big New Orleans thanks to Tonya Dawn, Cleveland Spears, plus Aziz, Whitney Mitchell, and Mallory